Cathie Wood has just bought more Tesla stock. This is pretty good news for Tesla stock investors.
Now, this once in a century is not an understatement.
$27 million in one day versus $32 million in about 2 weeks a year ago. This, I think, is a pretty big deal. And there is more room for Tesla stock purchases in Cathie Wood's fund. So I would expect more Tesla stock purchases actually over the next few days or few weeks. This is actually some pretty important news to Tesla stock investors, especially to newer ones, so that you get an understanding of just how innovative Tesla really is. Oh, by the way, man, these are all scrapped Model Y rear castings. What? Why is it a good thing to see scrapped castings? It is because Tesla is probably trying something new here. See these gaps? We do not see these gaps in current Tesla's Giga castings. And even a Tesla bear would understand that cutting out some material would make the vehicle weigh less, which would increase the vehicle's range, for example, reduce the cost to make the vehicle, and in some cases, if done correctly, it can improve the crumple zone. I don't really think this will help with the crumple zone, but I think this will reduce the costs that Tesla will need to spend on the Model Y. Tesla just needs to make sure that the structural integrity of the vehicle remains intact. But Tesla has access to some of the best engineers in the world that made the biggest rocket ever made that can actually fly. So yeah, I think Tesla can figure this little Giga casting thing out as well. Please someone explain to me, why are they putting paint protection film, PPF, on a Cybertruck that has no paint and is also bulletproof? What is it protecting? The only thing that I can personally think of is fingerprints, but I haven't been allowed to touch a Cybertruck, so I don't really know how bad the fingerprint issue will be, but I think we will soon find out whether this is completely pointless, or maybe if you don't like fingerprints, maybe this is a good idea. On the other hand, I can certainly understand why someone would want to wrap a Cybertruck in this matte black color. It certainly looks pretty interesting. I would keep mine though, probably without anything added to it. I like it raw. The Biden administration is discussing raising tariffs on some Chinese goods, including electric vehicles, which would be good for Tesla, in an attempt to bolster the US clean energy industry against cheaper Chinese exports. But the import fee for electric vehicles from China is already at 27.5%. So you don't see any of them imported anyway. However, I think everyone is missing the point here. The US is not afraid of Chinese-made vehicles being imported into the US because the tariffs are so high, it's not gonna happen. But the US does not like China investing into Mexico and then importing these vehicles from Mexico to the US. The US has stated that it is not trying to block investments from China funneling into Mexico, but rather work toward applying trade rules between the two countries, meaning you are not really going to import these vehicles from Mexico to the US, even though they are not made in China. There are multiple companies that are trying to build factories in Mexico, including BYD, but they should be very careful because if they are thinking that they are going to benefit from that $7,500 subsidy for each EV sold, they may think again. I think there's a good chance that these subsidies would somehow be removed for companies owned by Chinese corporations. And if not, I'm pretty sure that the US will somehow still make it more difficult for Chinese companies to operate. If you use FSD often or autopilot, you've probably found yourself in a pickle a few times when it is not raining, but the windshield wipers are doing this. It's a good feature because it keeps you awake because these windshield wipers really do make a lot of noise when they go like this. But the good news is Tesla now finally lets you turn off auto wipers when FSD or autopilot is engaged on the Model 3 or Y. Only those that own a Tesla and use autopilot and live in a place where it rains a lot like Vancouver can appreciate how important and life-saving this new feature is. I do have to confess that a few times I was just like, okay, I'm not using autopilot because it's raining and the windshield wipers just cannot find the right speed for the amount of rain that there is right now. From my personal experience though, usually it's not a problem, but a few times it is a major problem. Not often though for me. The most annoying part about this is when I have passengers and the car does that and I'm like, this is a bit embarrassing. Let me just turn this whole thing off. It makes me look like a driver that's not competent. But no more. At least 18 EV and battery startups that went public in recent years are at risk of running out of cash by the end of 2024. According to the Wall Street Journal, I think that number is going to only increase. And increase fast. A lot of these Ford dealerships eventually are going to join that list as well. 50% of Ford dealers have opted out of selling EVs entirely in 2024. They have chosen to stick with selling hybrid and internal combustion engine vehicles only in 2024. But bad news for Tesla's competitors do not just stop here. Toyota recalls over 25,000 BZ3 EVs in China due to inaccurate remaining battery estimates. Now, at first I thought this is just a software update and maybe they still need to take them to a dealership, but it's just a software update, right? Well, some of these vehicles also present not just incorrect estimates or remaining battery capacity, but also they lose power completely without warning. Which I guess is so Toyota-like because eventually, you know, if Toyota doesn't change things immediately, fast, drastically, their company's fate will also be very similar. The bankruptcy will happen without warning. Now, Toyota has a lot of resources, so they could still turn things around if they really wanted to, but the direction that they are going in is not looking good. Toyota is still trying to sell hydrogen vehicles. How stupid is that? However, Toyota admitted that the Mirai fuel cell car has not been successful, and in the move that will only not stun complete idiots, Toyota pivots towards hydrogen trucks. They just do not learn from their lessons. Wow. I have to admit though, I love Toyota because if they keep going like this, they're just making it so much easier for Tesla to dominate the market. And speaking of more bad news but good news for Tesla, Honda's American unit is recalling 2.5 million vehicles over risks of fuel pump failure that can cause an engine stall while driving and increase the chances of a crash. And Sawyer even pointed out that this is a physical recall. I feel that we need to say that now. Then when there's a recall, this is a physical recall. We have some pretty good news here, but it's a bit hidden and it's difficult to spot, so let me help you out. Here you can see BEV share in Europe, January to November. For example, Norway grew its market share of BEVs by 6%. Not high, but it's already very high. So that's fine. Iceland and Sweden and many other countries are doing fairly alright. There are a few really nice ones like Finland grew its BEV market share by 100%. That's amazing. Now, check out the UK, which is where Tesla sales are weak. And check out another country where Tesla sales are also supposedly weak year over year. Germany grew its BEV market share only by 15%. The Tesla bears say, oh, Tesla cannot sell more cars in Germany and in the UK. Therefore, Tesla is doomed. But if year to date Tesla grew 14% in Germany, is the logical conclusion of how well Tesla is actually doing, is it going to be good for a Tesla bear's mental health? No, it's not going to be good. Because if Tesla just grows at the pace that the battery electric vehicle adoption grows at, Tesla is going to do well. Did you know that Tesla sells a lot more standard range Model 3s in the US than long range Model 3s? Model 3 standard range sales in the US increased over time because that's what Tesla can produce, because they do not have enough 2170 cells to produce more long range versions. In the past, Tesla was focused more on range, which is the most important criteria for EV buyers still to this day. However, one big upside of owning a standard range Model 3 is that the battery can be charged to 100% every single day. So do you actually in practice end up having less range over time for your daily use? Not really. You only really feel the difference if you go on a road trip. So unless you need that extra speed, unless you really want that 4.2 seconds to 60 miles an hour instead of 5.8 seconds, I would suggest to go with the standard range rear-wheel drive model. Unless you live in an area where it snows a lot and the snow stays snow for at least 3 months during the year. Because of instant torque, the traction is actually pretty good as long as you have snow tires, even in the snow. Tesla faces inquiry by Norway's safety regulator over suspension failures, which could possibly result in a recall. I am wondering if it's a real issue or if it's an issue with the Tesla strike, and the regulators therefore giving Tesla a harder time. I'm not sure about this one, only time will tell, I think. But certainly I am a bit skeptical about this one. Yesterday, Tesla's stock dropped a few percent, and many people were wondering why that was. I don't think there was any particular reason other than the markets, basically. I don't think it had anything to do with Tesla. Gary Blatt just made a Tesla stock prediction, and you will like this one. We have argued for years that $25,000 next generation vehicle should be Tesla's highest priority and the logical next leg of Elon's Master Plan 1. As investors start to speculate about a late 2024 launch at the $25,000 EV from Austin, Tesla stock should move sharply higher. Tesla will not talk about the $25,000 EV so as not to Osborne the Model 3. But there's no doubt it is coming. To which James replies with late 24? Zero chance, Gary. This is Tesla we are talking about. I think James is jaded by the Cybertruck being delayed over and over and over again. And while I do expect the next generation vehicle to have new tech, I don't think it will be so much new tech that the production will be delayed by so long one more time. By one more time, I mean the whole thing happening that happened with Cybertruck happening again. And we know that they have been building a line for the next generation vehicle in Austin at least since June. So if they are looking at 18 to 24 months of construction in Mexico to start within the next month or two, it would need to start sooner than later if they plan on replicating in Mexico. So production needs to start sooner than later. And looking at Tesla's product history, roughly every other product is slow to ramp. But then also every other product is quite a bit faster. For example, the Model Y was so fast and the Cybertruck was so slow that the next vehicle hopefully is going to be really fast to ramp. And speaking of slow and fast ramps, the Tesla Semi next generation vehicle is out. And the ramp, well, they are selling a lot of these. But speaking seriously for a moment here, the Tesla Semi ramp has been also very, very slow. But I think that's largely because of batteries. And to some degree, we can certainly say the same about the Cybertruck, but when it comes to the Semi, you just need so many more batteries. To make a Cybertruck, you take roughly 2 Model 3 battery packs, but to make a Tesla Semi, you need 15. So I don't really consider the Tesla Semi delay a problem because of that. We have some good news here. The Tesla Model Y is now again the best-selling vehicle in all of China out of any kind of vehicle for a short period of time. Tesla Model Y earlier lost this spot to a BYD vehicle actually, but that was because Tesla prioritizes exports in the beginning of the quarter. But now that we are coming to the end of the quarter, there are more sales locally. So therefore, Tesla's Model Y is now again the best-selling vehicle in all of China. Tesla is having issues producing 4680 cells for the Cybertruck, a sketchy report says. The sketchy report is from Reuters. The 9 people who spoke to Reuters on condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the matter said Tesla had yet to crack dry coating at the industrial scale needed to make 4680 batteries fast enough to hit its production targets. The sources said Tesla was struggling to mix the cathode materials, which include lithium, manganese, and nickel, with a binder and stick them to a metallic foil to produce a cathode without using moisture. But Tesla's Drew Baglino did previously say that the automaker was able to ramp up battery production at 2 lines at Gigafactory, Texas, and plans to have 8 lines by the end of 2024. Certainly, there must be some issues, but are these critical issues? I really don't think so. Reuters does have a history of presenting certain things that later turn out to be either different or perhaps Tesla eventually figures out a different way to do things. So I would just keep this as a rumor that likely has some truth in it, but is not really all that relevant to us Tesla stock investors. For example, remember when Reuters said that Tesla is planning to import vehicles to the US from China? Well, Tesla only imported vehicles from China to Canada and not the US. Although the wording that they used was considering export made in China electric cars to the US, so they didn't really say Tesla will, but it did say it considered. My guess is maybe something got lost in all of these leaks, and Tesla was not seriously considering exporting these vehicles to the US, just to Canada only. On the other hand, Reuters leaks predicted so accurately the date of the refreshed Model 3. So we definitely cannot just completely ignore Reuters, definitely not.
With the exception of Tesla, which I believe will struggle next year as it bloomers off the electric rose. Yeah, we nailed it. We nailed it for you.
Jim Kramer's Tesla stock prediction track record is not exactly great. However, he doesn't always get it wrong. Last year, on December 5th, Jim Kramer explained why he would buy Tesla shares amid production cut reports. And if you bought Tesla stock back then, you actually did really well. But let's not forget that years ago, Jim Kramer said to not even rent Tesla stock. He said sell Tesla stock. So do not fall for the FUD. This is good news. Tesla secures a new credit union partner to reduce electric car payments. Tesla partnered with the leading credit union lending technology company in the US, which will basically help Tesla buyers match with a credit union. And in the US, credit unions are not-for-profit, member-owned financial institutions, federally insured for safety, and they generally, therefore, can offer lower interest rates since they are member-owned. Over here in Canada and in many other places, credit unions are actually for-profit organizations, but not in the US. Hyundai is making the right moves. It doubles down on the shift to EVs with plans to shut down 2 engine parts plants. Toyota should seriously look into what Hyundai is doing. And the media should seriously pay attention to the latest Toyota recall because 1 million US vehicles are recalled over sensors that may short circuit, which could result in airbags not deploying as designed. Do you think they can figure out an over-the-air software update for this? I don't think so. Waymo says that self-driving cars are safer than human drivers by up to 10 times, actually. This is based on data from over 7 million rider-only miles compared to human benchmarks. The Waymo driver had an 85% reduction in injury-causing crash rates. So accidents do happen, but you haven't really seen any major news about an accident involving a Waymo. So it to me signals a possibility that maybe some people are, or most people perhaps are, mostly okay with robotaxis, basically, as long as they are relatively safe compared to human driving. This is, of course, only 7 million miles. I think we need more like 100 million miles and multiple accidents eventually happening to really see how all of this plays out in the public. And hopefully Waymo, unlike GM, is not fabricating their data. Or not necessarily fabricating, but grossly misrepresenting what is actually happening, is what GM's Cruise has done. BYD's new Tesla Model Y rivaling electric SUV earns over 8,000 orders, which is pretty impressive. This was within its first 3 days on the market, so let's see if it actually lasts, but this is a pretty much direct Tesla Model Y competitor. I think most likely it will do fairly well, but the Model 3 did beat the BYD seal fairly easily, so I expect the same here. And it does seem that BYD is going to sell more pure battery electric vehicles than Tesla, but Tesla still has many more markets to expand into, whereas BYD does not really. So with time, I expect Tesla to severely beat BYD eventually. But there is enough room for multiple companies to be successful. This is another good reason why Tesla will succeed and beat all of these other automakers. Sorry, Canada, your new Kias are sitting in a storage lot. Kia has been accused of pulling a shady move by stockpiling new Kias in a storage lot in Ontario and leaving Canadian customers out to dry. Somehow said they have waited months, even years, for their new Kia. The rationale? Kia does not want to look too good. In CNBC's report from a few days ago, a November 17th video shows Kia regional sales manager telling representatives from some 100 dealerships that Kia Canada had already hit its sales target of selling 84,000 vehicles for the year. So there was no point in going overboard. Kia Canada wants to control wholesale and retail performance in 2023 to not show high overachievement. Doing so, he said, might put their marketing budget at risk in 2024. That's some serious self-sabotage. You have customers that want to buy the vehicles, and you have vehicles in inventory right now, but you are not selling anything because otherwise you will lose the marketing budget. See the problem here with having dealers? This works in Tesla's favor, of course, because this also includes some electric vehicles. And like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Thank you so much for watching.